Aha. So, anyway, so the next supernatural event. Um, so then we go to, now I'm in the eighth grade, and now we're in the stories of Mrs. Adams.
Oh boy.
And so, mom, dad rent a ranch. Dad's now retired from the Air Force for a while. He is now a chicken ranch assistant manager, I think, waiting to get
Hmm.
waiting to get his own ranch, because the general manager of those chicken houses, chicken ranches, would be given a house to live in, with rent
Yeah.
free, no utilities, all that kind of stuff. It was part of the compensation package. Assistant managers, unfortunately, just had to be poor and to get by the best they could. So dad was assistant manager, and okay, I'm what, 13 or so, and they're renting a house outside of Turlock, which is a small farm-like ranch. In fact, they actually raised a couple of pigs there, if you remember.
I remember that.
So Mr. and Mrs. Adams lived across the street. They were elderly, even at that point. Julia was in her 60s, and Mr. Adams in his early 70s. To me, they seemed ancient because they were ancient.
I remember at one point thinking that they were our grandparents.
Yeah, that would be understandable because they were so friendly to us.
Yeah.
Um, and mom had a great friendship with Mrs. Adams because Julia accepted her as she was. Um, you know,
Hmm.
mom could come over there drunk and in her nightgown, which at that point she pretty much wore her nightgown all the time. That was just her standard dress.
Yeah.
Well, more of a moo, more of a moo, not a nightgown, more of a moo kind of thing. Um, so anyway, Mrs. Adams, who was a odd, unusual woman, right? Very friendly,
Hmm.
but you might remember the story. She asked me to come over and clean her windows one day, and they had a big two-story house, and they didn't have a ladder. I said, "Well, Mrs. Adams, how would I clean your windows up there?" And she says, "Oh, well, you'll just have to you'll have to climb outside." And I said, "Well, I'll be holding on." And she goes, "Yeah, use one hand to hang on to the roof and the other hand
Hmm.
to wash the windows." And I was like, "Mrs. Adams, I can't do that. I'm not strong enough. I'll fall."
Yeah, that's funny. See, I actually got in trouble for doing just that when I was in the army.
Really?
Uh, I was over in Germany, so I was and we were cleaning for an inspection, and I was like, I'll get the outside of the windows, and they were like, how are you going to do that? And so I just opened them up, and with one hand, I stepped outside, and with one hand, my feet were on the windowsill, I was hanging on with one hand, cleaning with the other, and my platoon sergeant walked in and saw me and proceeded to chew me out and tell me to get back inside and tell me I'm an idiot because I could have fallen and died because we were on
Yes.
the third, fourth floor. So,
Well, I guess I had the good sense back then not to try to do that, but
and there I was, a full-grown adult with kids in the army, didn't have the sense to not do that.
well, you were you were
You've
just
always
trying to
been
pass
smart, Ralph.
inspection. So anyway, mom was telling me about how Mrs. Adams was telling her that she had a ghost. I'm in, I think, eighth or ninth grade at that point, and we had a ghost, or Mrs. Adams did. She said that her daughter had told her that she was having back problems, what have you, and that she came to visit her mom, Mrs. Adams. And when she left, she called Julia and said, "Hey, my back doesn't hurt anymore." Um, well, whether or not the ghost had anything to do with it, Mrs. Adams said to her, "Well, that's because you left him with me." And she started telling mom that she was seeing a young man, the outline of a young man in the place that had never been there before. And then at one point, even threw a coat hanger at her. Well, mom blew all those stories off. It's crazy Julia, right?
Uh,
So one day she comes home from visiting, though, across the street, and she says, "Ralph, she's telling us the truth. She has a ghost." And mom, what happened is mom went over to visit. She knocked on the door. Julie was upstairs and said, "Come on in." Mom walked in, looked up the stairs, and said there was the outline of a young man standing at the top of the stairs looking down at her. She didn't see a face, really just a torso. Basically, he was a 1950s guy wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. That's all she could see.
Hmm.
So she said, Julia, I see your ghost. And Julia was like, oh, thank God. Now you know I'm not crazy. So,
She was being haunted by James Dean.
yeah, could have been. Um, but anyway, so Julia went around and she did a cleansing of her house. Went around saying, in the name of Jesus, if you're an evil spirit, leave this house. And she's tossing olive oil or something around to anoint. Well,
Hmm.
whatever happened, it worked because the spirit left and it came over to our place. And I cannot remember whether Mom told me she'd seen it first or whether I had seen it. Um, but I remember there were two very clear occasions. One is she's making my breakfast, my lunch to take with me on the school bus. So she's making the sandwiches, and my job is to put them in the plastic bags. And the way the house was laid out, we're at the dining room table, and there's
Hmm.
a doorway, and there's the living room there. As I'm looking down to put my sandwiches in a wrapper, out of the top of my vision, I see this young man standing there in the corner. And the moment he sees that I see him, he reacts with the speed of sound, speed of light. He just zips across the living room and disappears, goes through a wall. And I said, Mom, I just saw the ghost. And she goes, did you? Did you really? I said, yeah. And she goes, you're not kidding me, are you? No, I wouldn't kid you about that. So apparently he started showing up more. And I think it's because now I know it's because he was getting a reaction from us.
Uh,
Especially from the book I just read. Lynn Monet writing about her experience with ghosts when she was buying a house. And now it's common knowledge that spirits thrive off negative energies. They thrive off fear. It gives them energy. So he had shown up to our place because we were reacting. Well, the next time I saw him, we were moving. Part of it was the ghost. It was sort of bothering Mom and Dad. And part of it was, hey, we're going to move into Turlock proper, and it was just easier in terms of
hmm.
getting everybody to school. And so we moved we hadn't moved yet though. So it was one of the last days we're at the house. I'm at the kitchen, standing at the kitchen, doing the dishes. And the kitchen had a big old window in front of the sink. And there was a crawl space basement. And so the house sat up a little ways off of the ground. So I'm looking down at the ground pretty far. And I suddenly realized it's broad daylight. I realized that young man is standing out there on the grass, looking through the window, looking at me.
Oh, wow.
It startles me. I'm like, I realize he's there. It's broad daylight. And again, the second that he sees that I perceive him, in this case, he rushes towards me.
Oh,
Quick,
wow.
very quickly, just whoop. But he goes underneath the house. He goes what would be underneath my feet.
Yeah.
And so, I stepped back. Okay, we're leaving this place. Well, we moved to this house, a little house in Turlock, that was across from a grape orchard where we had many, many fine illegal meals of grapes.
I
But
remember that.
I'm washing my face, getting ready to go to school shortly after we moved in there. I'm in the bathroom by myself, got the door locked. I'm rinsing my face off, in the sink. I look up in the mirror, the medicine cabinet mirror, and he's standing right behind me, looking at me. And I went, ugh! And the minute I perceive him, that puts him into action. He pivots, turns sideways, and disappears right through the bathroom door. And I follow him. I'm like, throw that door open. I jump out in the little hallway there. I'm like, our ghost is here. Our ghost is here. And Mom was seeing them. She told me that, for instance, she was walking down the hallway, and she'd had pictures of people up there on the wall, and she said, she told me she walked down the hallway, and suddenly realized that one of the faces wasn't a photo. She looked back, and there was nothing there. She realized that was the ghost looking out at her. It startled her because she just.
Yeah.
blew it off till she thought, wait, what did I just see? And then another time I came out of the my bedroom. She was in the little living room vacuuming. And I came into the living room and she looked up startled and stopped vacuuming and said, Ralph, I thought you were sitting on the sofa. She goes, I saw you sitting there and I was about to tell you to get your lazy butt up and help me clean. And she says, but that wasn't you at all. So again, there was the ghost. Well, about that time, Mom had gone to high school in Turlock, and somebody had discovered that she'd come back, one of her old classmates. This girl lady had apparently been, at the time, back in high school. She was a cheerleader, she was good looking. She had all of her life ahead of her. Life had not been good. Now she was overweight. She was missing some teeth. She had an abusive husband. She's an alcoholic. So all she wanted to do was reminisce with Mom about the good old days, look through the yearbook, or at least that's what Mom told me. And so she, Mom and Dad felt sorry for her and invited them over, her and her husband, for dinner. So all the kids, everybody stayed in their bedrooms. My bedroom was located right next to the living room, so I could hear a murmur of voices, whatever they were talking about. Not really distinct, but I could hear them talking. But if you yelled, I could hear you. And so I remember I'm doing math, and suddenly I hear this woman say, "What was that?" And Mom laughs and goes, "Oh, it's just our ghost." And the lady says, "We're leaving." And I hear the door open and close pretty quickly, and I come out of my bedroom and say, "What happened?" And Mom had, at that time, she had a couple of lamps that I can only think of as old lady lamps now, but there were these things, and they had these fake jewels, little glass tassels.
I remember them.
Yeah. And the lampshade was very stiff. It was a bronze little bronze things holding it on place. Well, what happened is the lady's sitting there in that spot where Mom had thought it was me earlier on the sofa, and the lamp's right next to her. Suddenly the lamp shade lifted itself up, tilted, and then went back down, and then did it again. So here's the lampshade moving by itself, and it's so stiff. There's no breeze or anything.
There's no way. Yeah, I remember that lamp.
Yeah, she had some old-fashioned furniture.
It's kind of an odd thing to remember, but I remember that lamp. I remember it because of the jewels.
Yeah, we had those jewels, a jeweled lamp, and the little white alabaster statues of David and winged horses and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so the lady left, and the ghost went with her, because see, we'd gotten a little blasé about the whole thing. And Mom was laughing, going, so on top of being an alcoholic, being abused, her life is crud, now she's got a ghost. So, yeah, that was so I'm absolutely sure those things happened because I kept seeing the guy. Well,
and it's not like you were a young kid.
No, at that point I'm a freshman in high school. I'm 14, 15. Yeah.
Wow.